Okay, we'll now call to order the August 17th, 2022 Reno City Planning Commission. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Gower, will you lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Gower. We do roll call now, please.
J.D. Draculich.
Here.
Peter Gower. Here. Mark Johnson.
Here.
Arthur Munoz, absent at this. He just arrived. Kathleen Taylor. Here. Sylvia Villanueva. Here. Alex Velto. Here. We do have a quorum.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is public comments. Would anyone in the public, I'm sorry, are there any requests to speak forms?
It should be noted for those in the audience that comments are to be addressed to the Planning Commission as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Planning Commission agenda. Please note that the Planning Commission may not take action upon any matter not agendized for possible action on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name, and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you are an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, at this time, please raise your hand. Lastly, while in this room, please be respectful. Warnings will be issued by the presiding officer if there is disruptive behavior, and you will be asked to leave chambers if the behavior continues. With that, we did receive correspondence related to nothing specific on the agenda. And we did receive a voicemail, which we will play momentarily. I did not receive any requests to speak forms at this time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Martinez. Address 3405 Cateo. Yeah, I would like to know what if it's necessary to go to the meeting. If not, give me a call, please. 775-379-1006. Thank you.
And we did attempt to return that phone call, but there was no answer.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone in the public like to speak in public comment about an item not specifically on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Come back to the commission for item number 4, which is approval of the minutes. Item 4.1 is the Reno City Planning Commission regular agenda for July 21st, 2022.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, I will move to approve the Planning Commission minutes from July 21st, 2022.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Draculich, I second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I will be abstaining. I was not at the meeting.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. In that case, the motion carries 6-0. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is public hearings. Item 5.1 and 5.2 have been pulled. So we'll move to item 5.3, which is case number LDC 22-00079, Chick-fil-A South McCarran. Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Thanks, Joey. We have a presentation from the applicant first.
Oops, I was muted all along. My apologies. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Nancy Carreras. I'm with Interplan. I'm representing Chick-fil-A. This is in regards to the Chick-fil-A 580 in South McCarran. This is located at 6365 South McCarran. That's in Reno. Let's see if I can scroll down. Or are you handling the screen?
We can handle it.
Okay, wonderful. Let's see. Share. If it's okay, can I share?
Yes, that's fine too.
Okay, thank you so much. There we go. And then let's see. Share. Here we go. And then I'll do my South McCarran. Here we go. Share. Okay, thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
The site address is 6365 South McCarran. We are proposing a request for an application for a conditional use permit to include the following scope. We are reconfiguring the parking lot, relocating the existing dumpster storage. We're proposing a new storage location behind the dumpster, in addition of dual flex lanes along the drive-through. We are adding a new ingress egress along East Private Drive. We're closing off the existing entrance exit. We're adding an existing infiltration trench to be removed and relocated, a dual lane meal delivery canopy addition. Existing trellis on site will be removed. We're adding a new sidewalk and pedestrian access. This will be located outside of Chick-fil-A property line. We are also proposing a new light pole relocation, addition of a bicycle parking spaces to meet the code requirements. We're also adding a canopy over the bicycle parking to alleviate the any rain or elements. The site is located at 6365 South McCarran Boulevard and is composed of one parcel located in Washoe County, parcel identification number 024-05316. The property consists of 1.405 acres to include the existing Chick-fil-A building. Oh, I can't get rid of that. It's so strange. There we go. Sorry about that. Restaurant building of 4,652 at the intersection of Kitsky Lane and South McCarran Boulevard. The site may be accessed through South McCarran Boulevard as well as Kitsky Lane. My apologies if I butchered that. Next, I have an aerial site. Next, I have the land use and zoning. The site is currently surrounded by commercial and retail restaurants. The site is zoned mixed use, MU. The hours of operation are listed as Monday through Saturday, 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. They're closed on Sundays. Drive-through hours are the same, Monday through Saturday, 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sundays closed. They do have approximately 15 employees per shift, and that'll change accordingly. Excuse me. This is the zoning map listing the site and surrounding properties as MU, mixed use. I've also attached the submitted plans through Ensign Engineering. This is the Alta survey of the site. Proposed site plan. This is a site plan dimension, my apologies. Oops, here we go. Details. Additional details. And this is the proposed landscaping. Also, I've attached existing site photos just as a visual. you can see the canopy that we're proposing. And this is the location of the order mill and the face-to-face back here. These are all existing photos. And these would be the proposed. I also have Miss Carrie, Teresa, and Natalie with Chick-fil-A if there's any questions or anything needed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Joey, do we have a presentation?
Yes, thank you very much. All right, now as I pull mine up, good evening, Commissioners, for the record, Joey Winter, and Chairman, good evening, Commissioners, Joey Winter, for the record, Associate Planner. And I'm here to follow on the applicant's presentation on the request to expand the drive-through at the Chick-fil-A located on South McCarran Boulevard. The applicant went over what the request is. I'll follow up on that. First, to establish the location of the site, this is south of downtown, immediately north of McCarran Boulevard, and immediately west of Interstate 580. The site is bounded by right-of-way for McCarran Boulevard to the south and private access roads to the north, east, and west. Currently accesses from the north private drive. The proposal tonight would shift that access to the east private drive. The project site is 1.4 acres. Zoning is mixed-use urban, as indicated by the map on your screen. And this is a conditional use permit request for the expansion of a drive-through facility. The existing drive-through facility was approved via special use permit in 2016, and that will stay. The request tonight is to expand the drive-through facility in order to alleviate some of the issues that are on the site related to capacity and access and circulation. Key issues identified by staff are on your screen now. 5 of them are up there, but really the big ones, the elephant in the room, I guess, is the capacity of this drive-through, which leads to issues with vehicle stacking and access and circulation at the site. So the bulk of my presentation tonight will be identifying what is out there now with the existing drive-through, what the request is to expand that drive-through to hopefully eliminate some of those issues. And starting with the existing drive-through, there is the existing site plan on your screen. Current capacity is 18 vehicles within the drive-through lane. That's the area with the green lines on your screen now, 2 ordering points and 1 pickup point. The big issue is there's not enough capacity. Therefore, we have stacking issues out into the private drives and into the parking lot. That does a couple things. One, it obstructs access to the parking for this Chick-fil-A. Those are the 2 X's below the red line. North of the red line, there's 2 entrance points to the car wash immediately north. Those are also impeded by the drive-through traffic. Additionally, because there's only 1 pickup point, there's a bottleneck within the drive-through where you're going from 2 ordering points down to the 1 pickup point. So obstruction of the access points and parking from the current layout. The proposed layout would have 49 stacking spaces within the drive-through lanes. That's the green area on your screen there. 2 ordering points and 2 pickup points. The main thing is this is a huge increase in vehicle capacity at the site. You're going from 18 cars to 49 cars. That's 2.5 times the amount of vehicles which can fit in the drive-through lane. Additionally, you have the 2 full drive-through lanes. That should increase efficiency of operations for the drive-through. You don't have that bottleneck going from 2 to 1. And moving the access point from the north private drive to the east private drive should deconflict from those access points to the car wash to the north. An additional benefit is because the parking area is reconfigured, we're actually gaining 9 stalls in the parking area. And there's where the additional stacking will go. Other key issues I'll go through very quickly. This was touched on by the applicant as well. Pedestrian, ADA, accessible pedestrian access from South McCarran Boulevard will be maintained. There will be protection for that pedestrian traffic from the drive-through. We're memorializing that through the condition in terms of a change in surface material or striping and required signage. And then covered bicycle parking will be added at the southeast corner of the building. Lastly, just to touch on landscaping real quick, 35 trees currently exist on site. After the expansion of the drive-through, there will be 35 trees, no net loss of trees, and all landscaping, required landscaping, will be provided on site. None of that landscaping is provided in the South McCarran Boulevard right away to the south. And finally, we worked with the applicant on screening for the drive-through area. There was one area where we were required to put in a decorative wall 36 inches high. Will screen the headlights of the cars. Here are the conditional use permit findings on your screen. After review, staff believes those findings can be made. Therefore, the recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions in your staff report. And that concludes my presentation. The applicant is here virtually. The applicant's engineer is here virtually. In addition, we have some representatives from Chick-fil-A here in the audience. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Joey. I will now come back to the commission for disclosures. We'll start with Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Johnson, I am familiar with the site.
Commissioner Taylor, same disclosure.
Commissioner Draculich, same disclosures.
Commissioner, excuse me, Commissioner Villanueva, familiar with the site and sometimes use that car wash.
Commissioner Munoz, familiar with the site.
Commissioner Gower, also familiar with the site.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosure. We'll now open up public comments. Do we have any requests to speak forms?
We did not receive any correspondence, no voicemails, and no requests to speak forms have been submitted for this item.
Great, thank you. Would anyone in the public like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Come back to the commission for questions of the applicant or staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner, please.
First question for staff, and Joey, this may be as much for Mike Michelle as it is for you, but concern about I guess a question. Did staff look at the entrance there off of McCarran and the potential consideration of stacking from someone making a left turn into that parking area? I know the proposal is to increase the flow, but that's a pretty short distance between McCarran and the entrance. Was there consideration there and just making sure that staff is comfortable with what's being proposed here in that particular piece of the proposal?
Yes, absolutely, Commissioner Cower. Joey Winter for the record. We did look at this. I think it's important to note that we have an existing drive-through out there that lacks capacity. And this is an attempt from Chick-fil-A to come forward to make it better. Both the layouts on your screen there far exceed what code requires in terms of stacking space. We did look at this and we felt that this was the best layout given the site constraints and given the fact that it's an existing drive-through. We did look at that stacking out onto South McCarran, and we have issues to address it if it comes up, but with it exceeds so far our code. We know Chick-fil-A is a very popular drive-through, but we can't really penalize Chick-fil-A proactively and say, there's definitely going to be an issue. If an issue comes up, we will certainly move to address it, and we have the ability to address it. And I think Mike has some more to add.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Mike Michelle for the record. Yeah, this is a total improvement to the existing condition, and we evaluated that, and we are in complete approval of the layout as proposed.
Okay. Thanks, Joey. Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I've got right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Villanueva.
Thank you, Chairman. Am I understanding it correctly? The entrance to the north into the Chick-fil-A parking lot, that also passes that car wash. That's closed off? That's not going to exist anymore? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. There's currently 2 access points on the north. Those are going away. Landscaping's going in that place. The access will be relocated to the southeast corner of the property.
Oh, okay.
On the right side for me.
So is that going to, I'm just looking at this map right here. So it's going to be from McCarran or from Kitsky?
It'll be, McCarran is to the south. Both those entrances to the development are on McCarran. This will be on the east private drive. So the entrance to the Chick-fil-A itself it's on it's a private drive off McCarran. But ultimately access is from McCarran, but the curb cut is on a private access easement and access drive. It's not a new curb cut on South McCarran.
Oh, so entrance and exit will be the same from that side?
Correct. From the overall development, there's no changes to the egress and ingress.
Okay, so they're just closing off that north entry into the drive-through, and then everyone exits and enters from that McCarran entry.
If you see on your screen on the left side, there's the red arrows with the 2 access points. That's the north private drive, where there's access from a private drive to the Chick-fil-A. And then the proposal is to relocate that access to an east private drive. So there's no changes in NDOT right-of-way.
Okay.
You got
I
it.
see Yeah, I see it now. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to see up there. Thank you.
Perfect. Yep, that works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joy, I like the presentation. Thank you for the red and the green, and it helped me understand. Can you pull up your proposed stacking diagram again, please?
For the proposed drive-through,
Yes, please.
right there?
Yes. So my question, and anything I think is probably going to be an improvement here. Something needs to be done. I think we all know. The stacking is going to go around to the west. Is that what I'm seeing?
Well, yeah, ideally the stacking stays within the green area, within the lanes. If it stacks up, I just added those red lines to show if we currently stack out immediately those red X's, there's immediate impact to the car wash via any additional stacking. We're going to 2.5 times the amount of cars that can fit in this green area. And then this is just the ways to access. You can access both from the north on the east private drive and then off McCarran and immediately in.
Okay, but most of their access is probably off of McCarran.
Yes.
Okay, so if people are coming west on McCarran and they make a right-hand turn, are they going to be stacking up on McCarran, or maybe that's what Commissioner Gower asked?
I think that was Commissioner Gower's question, and that is a potential possibility if there's excess stacking. But this is a great improvement with the amount of additional stacking provided. We're hopeful that's not the case. We have remedies to address that if it does become a case in terms of working with the applicant and signage and so forth. But hopefully we don't get to that point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, Joey, just so you know, you can use the mouse to indicate on the screen for everybody.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure I can follow that comment up, but I do have a question. I believe this would be for a representative from Chick-fil-A, I believe. I don't know if that's in person, online, how we want to do that.
Hello, how is everyone? I'm Carrie Teresa, and this is Natalie Cadlitz, and we are here to represent Chick-fil-A Inc. So if it's a Chick-fil-A specific question, we can definitely answer it. If it's design related, we would probably flip it to our civil engineer on the phone.
I think it's going to be Chick-fil-A related.
Love it.
The first, I guess the question is, do you have other examples of the double drive-through all the way from order to pickup?
We do. So this is a wonderful, impactful capacity play that we are implementing across the chain, and we have seen wonderful results with something like this. So increased throughput, increased capacity.
Okay, so I guess then the follow-up to that, because the concern that I have when I'm looking at this is maybe less one for the traffic stacking and more an operational one, because certainly you don't have a window for that outer line. So whoever is providing the drop off to that, I have a pedestrian walking across one lane to the other for food delivery. Is that how that works?
Correct. So we do have outside meal delivery. So we have team members that stand outside of the window and will hand food to customers as they come through. So there is striping in between the 2 lanes. 2 to 3 feet is what is required from our risk department, and we have seen really great results with that.
Okay, so the person that's out basically in between the lanes is circulating back and forth to the building and back out.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, and that is an operational thing that you have in place successfully.
Yes, it absolutely.
I think that answers my question. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Absolutely.
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no, oh, Commissioner Munoz?
Thank you, Commissioner Munoz, for the record. Joey, it's going to be for you. Just to put my mind at ease, you said that there is some things in mind if this does stack onto McCarran. Can you give us just some kind of idea of what that might be?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Commissioner Munoz. Maybe we haven't thought about that yet. I mean, we've thought of the site and try to get as much stacking on there as possible, but they cannot impede the right of way. We've had other drive-throughs in the city where that's happened, and there's code enforcement, the ability. Some of the things I've seen on other sites, and we don't have this in mind, but signage, cones. I'm thinking of the Dutch Brothers on South Virginia by the Convention Center. There's been issues at that site, and we do have tools to handle it, but there's nothing particularly in mind for this Chick-fil-A.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Draculich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Dragilich, those remedies, would anything, I know you don't have anything in place, anything would impede people getting to the car wash from that eastern part of that private drive?
Well, I mean, that's part of the concern right now. I appreciate the question, Joey Winter. Currently, right now, there's a high degree of conflict between the car wash entrances and the Chick-fil-A entrances. We'll look at, the main concern is impediment on the public right-of-way, so that's specifically South McCarran Boulevard. But if it becomes an issue, there can be code complaints that come in, and we will address that accordingly as a city.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman, if I could, Joey, if I can just ask this another way, and I think we're all kind of getting at the same question and looking for the same answer. Does the additional capacity, what you're showing on your screen, 266%, does that accommodate the volume of traffic and stacking that is occurring now? And does that 266% alleviate those concerns? Does it provide the adequate capacity that they lack now?
That is a great question. I will defer to our engineering manager.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, I was on mute. Mike Michelle, engineering manager. Again, this proposed project significantly increases the circulation on site, and it does significantly enhance the, I would say, conflict between Chick-fil-A and the car wash. And to address the McCarran issue, it should not, it will do nothing but improve any conflict at McCarran. And if there is a conflict, you know, we're not in the business of penalizing projects. Our code enforcement people will talk to Chick-fil-A if there is a problem, and if need be, we will make accommodations to make sure that there are no conflicts at McCarran.
I appreciate that, Mike. I guess that still kind of leaves the question a little bit unanswered for me, and I don't know if someone from Chick-fil-A can help me answer this question in terms of the undercapacity now versus the increased capacity that's being proposed. Does the proposed address the undercapacity in the current situation?
Carrie Teresa again. So with this site, currently as it is, we experience site capacity issues. The kitchen is very much underutilized. With this, I feel like it would be hand in hand, and it would alleviate a lot of the problem. So we'd be able to get speed of service, food out the door quicker, which we would see hopefully no issues with stacking out on a McCarran. I don't want to say it would never happen because things do happen, but I see that this would be huge for us.
Thank you. I hate to push on this question. I still don't feel like there's an understanding of what the undercapacity is now. I mean, is the amount of stacking 266% more than your capacity?
So let's put it this way. This roughly, and this is off the top of my head, this site does about, I think it's 100 cars an hour in peak hours. That's 100 cars going through the drive-through. This is 49 stacking. So that's a lot of cars and a lot of capacity for us to get cars through the lot or through the stack. So with that amount of time. Does that answer your question?
Getting closer, yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to find a way for it to get there for you.
So Chick-fil-A doesn't necessarily have an understanding of what the on a given day or a worst case scenario, how many cars are stacked outside the property line.
Go ahead.
Maybe staff does.
Thank you. We asked this question, so I appreciate Commissioner Gower. The figures we got from Chick-fil-A, and I believe it was from somebody in engineering who might be on the call, about 1,000 cars a day was the estimate of going through this. Okay. So that's open 10 hours, but obviously the peak times are going to be much more. But that was the figure we got, was roughly 1,000 cars a day currently going through the drive-thru.
Okay.
Commissioner Mooney, this is going to be for Chick-fil-A again, real quick. And I think this may clarify everything. So with 49 vehicles stacking at a vehicle parked at the back of the stacking, so they say they're the 49th car, how long does it take that car to get through? Typically, from beginning of stacking to ordering to driving out of the parking lot, what is the time frame for that?
I believe it's about 12 to 18 minutes.
12 to 18. And you can do 100, you're saying about 100 cars an hour?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any more questions? And if not, we can move into discussion. Commissioner Gower?
I mean, the only discussion point that I have is just wanting to make sure that, you know, we're doing all we can as a city, right, to avoid any sort of situation where we have stacking. Now, really, we have two options. One is to go on the north and west side or out onto McCarran, and I think we're all kind of concerned about the scenario with people coming in from the east, entering off of a McCarran and having a situation where, you know, they're backed out onto McCarran. So that's why I was just trying to find out, Mr. Chairman, what the capacity being proposed is relative to the amount of undercapacity now. And I don't feel like I quite got to the answer that I was looking for, but, you know, based on the feedback that I've been given from staff, and that there are subsequent, you know, strategies in place if a scenario does happen, I feel, you know, fairly confident. Would have been nice to have a little bit more clear of an answer, though. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Gower. Commissioner Draculich?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Draculich, I'm with you 100%, Commissioner Gower. That was my first thought, still kind of lingering a little bit. Significant improvement, obviously. It sounds like the city and Chick-fil-A feel like they've improved it so much there shouldn't be an issue. But if there is, it sounds like we have to be okay with voting that. We just may have to be reactive as a city and Chick-fil-A if it does become a consistent problem. So you're right, we didn't necessarily get the answer I was hoping we'd get to when it comes to that one pain point there. But it does look like a lot has been done and they seem confident, and, you know, city does as well. So I'm kind of with you, but ready to go.
Commissioner Taylor?
I would just add, big picture wise, this is going to help. It's better than what it is out there. So agree, but it's a positive thing.
Mr. Chair, just as I guess the point that I see when I look at this, and again, I appreciate Joey's visual. If we're looking at the same amount of stacking, it's hard to, in my mind, it's still hard to get over how close the entrance is to McCarran, because obviously that's what we're all responding to. But I do think in maybe taking the broader picture and saying the stacking that we're putting on the site now is currently not on the site. And it is hard to think about it that way. I mean, I've stared at this site plan for a while now, and it's still, challenging to, I certainly don't want to be the 49th car in any drive-through lane ever, just for, where I would be. So I do think that there is, to Commissioner Taylor's point, there's an improvement here, and the improvement is happening within the site, and it's just difficult because that improvement within the site makes what we're perceiving as a problem closer to McCarran. But I believe, just again, staring at the plan and staring at the capacity, I do still have some concerns about the person that's standing out there handing sandwiches in, 30-degree weather here and having to run back and forth. And, hope that person gets a little hazard pay. But I do think that from a traffic standpoint, in terms of what we're looking at here, it is an improvement despite the initial perception that I see when staring at the plan. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Shimoda Weva?
I generally agree with those previous two comments. I understand where Commissioner Gower's coming from, and it is really very close to McCarran. But if I'm understanding correctly, there's also that second entrance that you got to go all the way around. So I think that would help alleviate. And then, as Commissioner Johnson said, a lot of it is now on site. A lot of the stacking is now on site, whereas previously some of it was on site, but also impeding with the car wash. So I think I'm fine with this.
Great. Sounds like we have some comments. Do we have a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
Mr. Chair, in the matter of case number LDC 22-00079 Chick-fil-A South McCarran, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I recommend the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit subject to conditions, and I can make all the findings.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Munoz, just want to put on the record, I hope they bring the chicken wings here, and I second it.
Is that part of the motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to item 5.4, which is case number LDC 22-00086. This is Mickey Storage Shed. Great, thank you, Leah. Do we have a presentation from the applicant tonight? Just you, perfect, okay.
Just going to be me. Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, Leah Brock, Assistant Planner with Development Services. And this evening, I am presenting the application for the major deviation for the Mickey Storage Shed. The applicant has requested a major deviation to reduce the required 5-foot side yard setback by 1.6 feet, resulting in a side yard setback of 3.4 feet. This would allow the applicant to permit an existing unpermitted 742 square foot metal storage shed. Key issues related to this request are general code compliance and compatibility with surrounding uses and structures. Subject site is located in the single-family residential zoning district with 5 units per acre, SF5. The parcel is surrounded by developed residential, single-family residential homes. The neighbor to the east of the subject parcel, right here, is the neighbor that would be most impacted by this deviation, and that neighbor has submitted a letter of support along with this request. The parcel was first developed in 1980 with a 1,720 square foot single-family residence. Per Reno Municipal Code, the principal building and all accessory structures must meet the required 5-foot yard setback. The subject 742 square foot metal storage shed was erected by the applicant without a permit. At this time, the applicant cannot obtain a permit for the structure without an approved major deviation to reduce that side setback. The applicant has offered to mitigate the visual impact of this 742 square foot metal building by planting evergreen trees along the fence line to the north of the structure and along the west fence line as well. Per Reno Municipal Code, detached accessory buildings in a residential zoning district that contain 200 square feet or more of gross floor area shall be architecturally compatible with the existing principal residential building. The applicant has proposed to add several features that would meet these design standards, including similar siding, color, trim, windows, and roof lines that align north to south. The project was reviewed by various city divisions and partner agencies. Courtesy notices and hearing notices were sent out to the surrounding property owners, and staff has received one comment in opposition to this request. That concern from that letter of opposition basically cited that allowing a major deviation on one property may set a precedent for other properties, but staff does look at this on a case-by-case basis. Additionally, the project was presented to the Ward 4 Neighborhood Advisory Board, and no comments were received from that meeting. With the recommended conditions of approval, the major deviation appears to meet the design standards and addresses the applicable findings. Therefore, staff does recommend approval, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. That does conclude my presentation. The recommended motion is on the screen, and the applicant is here and available for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we'll now come back to the Commission for disclosures. We'll start with Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Received and read correspondence.
Commissioner Munoz, same disclosures.
Commissioner Villanueva, same disclosures.
Commissioner Draculich, same disclosures.
Commissioner Taylor, same disclosures.
Commissioner Johnson, same disclosures.
Commissioner Valto, same disclosures. It was very quick. Are there any requests to speak forms? We'll now open public comments. Are there any requests to speak forms?
We did receive correspondence. No voicemails were received, and I do not have any requests to speak forms for this item.
Great, thank you. Would anyone in the public like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Come back to the commission for questions or discussion. Sure.
Chair, thank you. Lee, I have a question for you on this one. So I appreciate the comments and the photos to show the compatibility. I guess the one question I have, and it's maybe it's a boilerplate issue here, but when we, in talking about the idea of, setting a precedent or anything else, I guess the one question I have under the recommended conditions of approval, we have our standard one in there about applying for a building permit within 18 months. And I feel that for something that's already in place, and, I get that they can't apply for one without the deviation, but in my mind, if we want to be stating that we're not doing anything in particular, and especially since the fact that it's there, I would, ask if staff has an issue with that deadline being reduced to 12 or 6 months. It sounds like, obviously it's in place, so it's just a matter of submitting it. But I see that, and that to me seems a little bit long.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Leah Brock for the record. Staff put that condition in because that is our standard condition. However, just to put a little bit more information out there, this is being handled by code enforcement right now. And code enforcement does have some additional deadlines for timing on when this needs to be applied for in the building permit. My understanding from the applicant is that he is 100% ready to apply for that building permit as soon as this is approved. So it is, of course, under the purview of this commission to modify that timeline in those conditions, and staff would support that.
Okay, so to your point about code enforcement, so my understanding is, if it's a code enforcement issue, it then becomes a cease and desist of use. I'm just trying to understand how this being brought forth as a code enforcement issue is tied to the building permit that we're looking at. I understand this process. I'm not sure how you know, if there's, are you saying that if there's a modification to this, it may impact a different timeline that's out there?
No, what I'm saying is that a notice of violation has been issued from code enforcement. I don't know exactly what that timeline is. I'm gonna venture a guess that it's 30 or 60 days. And they have given the applicant that timeline in order to bring the property into compliance. And the property can only be brought into compliance by either removing that structure or obtaining the building permit. So even though we may stipulate that it's 18 months, through the planning department, code enforcement may have a 30-day or a 60-day deadline.
Understood. Okay, so that was my point, is that it's almost as if the modification that we're making here is, no matter how short we make it, it's probably still longer than the code enforcement requirement to address it.
That is absolutely true, yes.
Okay. Thank
And
you
we
for
don't
that.
want to conflict with code
That's why
enforcement's
I
timeline.
don't want to conflict with it, but I also am just looking at it from the standpoint of, you know, our findings in terms of making any special precedent or anything like that. I just look at that deadline and it seems a little bit, you know, extensive for that. But I'll open that up for discussion with the commission. But thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Gower?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leah, can you just walk me through the logic of how you made the major deviation finding 3 about not constituting a special privilege? I know you mentioned it in your presentation, but if you could just go into a little bit more detail in terms of the rationale as to why it doesn't constitute a special privilege?
Bear with me while I pull that up, Commissioner Gower. Thank you. So under Reno Municipal Code, any applicant is allowed to apply for a major deviation for up to 50% to reduce a setback. That is allowed under code. In this particular case, the applicant is making that request under code. It's not a special privilege if the commission doesn't grant it, but it is a special privilege for any major deviation that this body sees to grant that. So I would say that that's how we made that finding. Per Reno Municipal Code, they are allowed to ask for that special privilege for a major deviation.
And so the logic is when you mentioned that you review it on a case-by-case basis, the neighbor could do the same thing, the next door neighbor on the other side could do the same thing. They all have the equal privilege of being able to apply for this major deviation.
That is correct, yes. So it's not a special privilege because anybody can apply for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. There's no further questions. We'll open up discussion. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, and I appreciate that question, Commissioner Gower, because that kind of gets at the heart of maybe where I was going with this, in the sense that, you know, I agree that anybody can apply for this and certain conditions, and certainly this one, I mean, I saw there's other improvements that have been made as a result of this. So it wasn't as though this was being done, you know, with any sort of nefarious intent. The concern that I had is maybe just backing it up and saying you've built it first and then you're coming back and asking forgiveness. And so that's where it's not necessarily, you know, to that end, it seems a little bit unusual. And that's why I have the concern about, you know, just our standard conditions being put on it. I think there needs to be a situation where it becomes a little bit more, you know, that we're recognizing that this was built without a permit and built prior to going through the conditions that anybody else can go to. So to me, there wasn't, you know, I didn't see any sort of punitive point on it other than maybe just making a point that the time period should be 6 months. It doesn't sound like that's a hardship on the applicant. It doesn't sound like that's in conflict with what code's going to do, but it does recognize the fact that, you know, if somebody chose, because, you know, there are other instances where somebody might get flagged when they've just got a slab on the ground and they don't have the building up, and then they're coming in, and then it may become a bigger issue to try to get a building permit in 6 months. So I think, to me, that's where I'm sort of looking at this as you've built it, now you're asking for, you know, forgiveness. Understand you're by rights allowed to do that, but you have to do it quickly because you've already kind of stepped outside the lane. So I would just throw that out there as my comment to responding to what Lee had said, and just making it seem even more like we're not just going against what the normal due process is. I'll just throw that out there for discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner,
I'm prepared to make a motion if we don't have any more discussion.
Commissioner Villanueva, do you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Commissioner Johnson. I agree. I don't know that there was anything malicious. There was no malicious intent, but I agree. I mean, as a form of deterrence, I mean, because if we don't create this level of deterrence, then I mean, who's to stop people from doing this type of taking this type of action in the future? I just don't know what kind of solutions we have for that. So if the city or if the planner has any recommendations for any actions that we can take, please share those. Otherwise, I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to this project. But.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Villanueva. Leah Brock for the record. There are going to be additional fines imposed through the building permit process. So it's not as if the applicant is going to be granted a major deviation and then just be allowed to proceed with this. There are additional fines that are going to be imposed. So there are punitive actions that will be addressed through code enforcement.
Thank you. That's really helpful to know.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to comment on that. I don't necessarily see us as a punitive body. So I think if there's things in place that code enforcement can do, we should let code enforcement do that. And I would be really hesitant to try to punish an applicant for coming forward. Would be my only thoughts on that, unless there's something clearly supporting it, which I haven't seen necessarily in the code. But I do appreciate the question because I think it's important to not encourage behavior we don't want to encourage.
Yeah, I don't think we should. I agree. I don't think we're a punitive body, but it's important for us to know and applicants to know in the future, for when coming forward with these applications, that you may not see those kinds of punitive actions taken here, but they do exist, whether it's in this body or outside of that. I agree. I don't know that that's our place, but it is helpful to know that those actions are being taken.
Great, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I'm not, my point wasn't to be punitive from a financial perspective. It was merely just to state that this has already gone in a different route than what is set up. And so what we have is the conditions that can be put on there. And to me, a building that's already there and suitable for use that violates code, if we are putting the process through correctly to do it, the one thing that we have the ability to do is accelerate the requirements of that process, which then does bring about all of the code enforcement and everything else. So I just, having that there at 18 months, I get it that there's some code enforcement issues and this may be a non-starter whatsoever, but if somebody would be to look at ensuring that we're not granting a special privilege where, again, you're building something and then going back and forth, the comment that I made about you're halfway through something and you get shut down, you want to, I think what we're trying to say is it doesn't just get to sit there for 18 months. It needs to be addressed. So, but again, I understand your point, and the idea wasn't to be punitive, but it was to recognize that this is not granting a special favor, and that's how we're able to do that.
I understand what you're saying. Thank you for that clarification. Do we have a motion?
Commissioner Munoz, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please do.
In the case of LDC 22-00086 Mickey Storage Shed, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the request for major deviation, subject conditions listed in the staff report, and I can make all the findings.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Gower, I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, and good luck with your existing building. Thank you. We'll now move to item 5.5, which is case number LDC 22-00068 Mill Street Drive-Through Coffee Kiosk. Leah, are you on this one as well? Perfect. And do we have a... Oh, is the applicant remote? Oh, perfect.
I believe the applicant is presenting remotely. And then I think we have the owner here to present as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, if you're ready, you can unmute and begin your presentation. Looks like you're still muted.
Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. This is Ken Murphy with Murphy Built Engineering, and I'm the project engineer. I'm remote, and the owner of the property is there in chamber with you guys. Let's see. Now, am I able to share my screen?
It's up to you. We can advance for you, or you can share.
If I could share, that'd be helpful.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it says I cannot share while the other participants. There we go.
Perfect.
Go ahead and try again.
There we go. Thank you for your patience. So our proposed project is a coffee kiosk, which means that all business transactions will be done either while the customer is in their vehicle or as a pedestrian. So there will not be any transaction within the building, and there will not be any dining within the building. So everything is done on the outside of the building. The project is located approximately 300 feet from the intersection of Mill Street and Kingsky Lane, and it's within a quarter mile of the I-580 corridor, which is a requirement for drive-throughs in this area. The zoning for the project is mixed use, which our proposed project conforms with. However, we are adjacent to a residential zone, requiring us to meet all the residential adjacency standards with this project. So currently at 1640 Mill Street is a car wash that was developed in 2004, 2005. Both the property owner that is in chamber tonight and myself were involved with that project. In fact, it was the first project that we worked with together in Reno. And so both of us were born and raised in Reno, and we have a vested interest in the community. And you could also see the property to the east of the existing car wash, which is a vacant parcel. The car wash through the years basically became infeasible because it's not a manned business, and due to vandalism and unsheltered persons taking up residence there, it became a hazard, and it became infeasible to run the business. So in 2018, 2019, the owner started looking at a way to repurpose the building. And initially we started out looking at taking off, let me backtrack a little bit and tell you the existing car wash has 3 self-service bays and 1 auto service bay. So when we were looking at repurposing the project, we were going to take off a couple of the self-serve bays and the auto bay and just make it into a coffee kiosk, or some kind of drink like a Jamba Juice or something like that. But as we got into the design process, there was some limitations with doing that, which I'll go over in a minute. But I want to advance to this screen to kind of show you the existing conditions. We're looking at, on the left, the existing drive-through to the auto bay, and on the right is the existing speaker system for that's been in service for the past 17 or so years, and that'll become significant in a second to address a concern of staff's. So while we were developing the concept, it became apparent that we just didn't have the room to properly circulate vehicles through just the car wash property. So when the vacant parcel to the east became available, we were able to obtain that property, and which helped us with the circulation of the property. One of the things to optimize circulation is to have a stacking distance of about 6 to 7 cars from the pickup window to the ordering point, and then another 6 or 7 cars from the ordering point to the entrance of the project. And this is based on research that we've done talking with coffee businesses such as Starbucks. And as a point of note, when we started out with the project, we didn't have a tenant in mind. But recently, Starbucks has given us a notice of intent. So our hope is that this will become a Starbucks, and much of what we're doing is based on them becoming the tenant. But so what we have done here is we now have stacking distance from the pickup window to the ordering point of 7 cars, and then from the ordering window to the start of the line, we have the capacity for 12 to 13 cars, which will help with the circulation. One of the comments from our traffic engineers and from city engineering is that the access to the west become an ingress only, and the access to the east be a egress only, to help with circulation. And I actually think that helps out a lot by doing that. And we didn't have a problem with accommodating that request. The existing building footprint of the car wash is about 2,300 square feet. The kiosk would go down to about 1,000 square feet, maybe a little less, which will reduce the building footprint, allowing for more landscaping and kind of just a more of a beautification of both parcels. And then we'll have some pedestrian amenities. We want to make it really inviting for pedestrians. So we'd like to have a paver patio with exterior benches incorporated into the building, and just as many exterior tables and seats as possible. Of course, during the summer, we'd hope to have more because people use it more than during the winter times. Then we'd also have landscaping features, kind of like a boulder fountain with decorative rock around it. We'll have bicycle racks and stalls. So the development of the property, we believe, will enhance, both these parcels, and be an improvement for the area and become inviting for the area. So 2 prototypes of Starbucks are shown on your screen right now. The building that we're proposing kind of combines both of them. The exteriors facing Mill Street would be more like the glass structure there, where you'd be able to see into the building, with the sides and the rear being more like the structure on the left. And we do have some plans of the elevations showing how we'd combine those 2 here. I believe those are in your packets. So that's our design concept. One of the major concerns from staff was the ordering point and mitigating the sound to the existing residences. So there's several things that we have proposed to mitigate the sound. The first thing we're proposing is that we have a canopy structure with a wall on it to block noise actually from Mill Street, because when you're at an ordering speaker, you want to kind of have your decibels at about 65 which is normal speaking. And that has to increase if you have ambient noise. So if we create a canopy structure, with walls on it, that will be able to reduce the noise coming from Mill Street. The second thing we do is put a voice activated system on it, which will be able to, reduce the volume as, when the ambient noise it lowers. And then with those two structures, you try to have the ordering speaker set at 85 decibels, which by the time it reaches 25 to 30 feet away from the ordering point, that becomes 65 decibels, which is your normal speaking sound. So in addition to those two structures, to lower the sound mitigation, we're proposing, we're not proposing, there's an existing CMU wall there on top of a berm that will help to mitigate that noise. But in addition to that, we're proposing a wood slatted wall with shrubbery around it to absorb more of the noise. So with all those factors, all those elements in there, we should be able to mitigate the sound so that the adjacent residences, by the time it hits the houses, you shouldn't be able to hear the sound. So I guess the two things I want to address are the two major obstacles or concerns that staff had were the traffic circulation and the sound mitigation. So I've gone over those. All the other elements, I think we will conform to. We think that they will enhance the property. And really we want to have a good business there. We want to make the site presentable. I think it benefits the property owner, it benefits the community, and it benefits the city. So I'm available for any questions, and the property owner is there for any questions also. Thank you. Leah, do we have a presentation?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Chairman. Leah Brock, Assistant Planner, Development Services, City of Reno. I'm going to follow up on the applicant's presentation. He covered most of what I was going to cover, but I'll talk a little bit about Reno Municipal Code and how that applies. So the applicant has requested a conditional use permit to allow for an accessory drive-through adjacent to residential zoning district on a half-acre site. Again, the site is located on Mill Street, approximately a quarter-mile east of Renown Regional Medical Center. The key issues related to this request are the general site design, traffic access and circulation, sound mitigation near that residential zoning district, and the compatibility with the surrounding zoning and uses and those residential homes that are adjacent. Subject parcel is located in the mixed-use urban zoning district, and it is adjacent to single-family residential 8 units per acre or SF8. The applicant has gone over most of this, but again, general site design includes 950 square foot coffee shop, stacking lanes, which would allow for 2 lanes at the beginning, merging into one. It would be 360 feet of stacking. Reno Municipal Code does require 140 feet of stacking room behind the window where the orders are handed out. So in this particular case, the applicant has far exceeded the code requirements in Reno Municipal Code. 20% of landscaping is required. The applicant has proposed 33.5%, and we have put condition number 6 to make sure that that happens. So again, the applicant has exceeded the code requirements. Pedestrian amenities will include benches, tables, chairs, a water feature, and a paver patio, which also has been conditioned. Just to touch a bit on that sound mitigation, per Reno Municipal Code, Outdoor speakers or ordering systems that emit sound are prohibited within 100 linear feet of a residentially zoned property unless other designs are infeasible and a building or alternative enhanced buffering is located between that adjacent residential property and the outdoor speakers. So in this particular case, the applicant feels that the alternative enhanced buffering will mitigate the sound. And through all of those enhanced sound buffering, including that automatic voice control system, which again has been conditioned. Sorry, doesn't seem to be working. There we go. Regarding traffic access and circulation, this section of Mill Street is a moderate access control arterial. The driveway spacing should be a minimum of 150 feet, which it is not in this case. Engineering has stated that they will support an approved design exception for the proposed spacing, but that exception will be required prior to approval of the site improvement permit. Again, we've conditioned that as condition number 11. If that is not approved, a single two-way driveway constructed to city standards would also be supported by staff. The project was reviewed by various city divisions and partner agencies. Courtesy notices and hearing notices were sent out to the surrounding property owners, and no comments have been received by staff. Additionally, the project was presented to the Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board, and no written comments were received from them either. Therefore, with the recommended conditions of approval, the existing site appears to meet or exceed the code standards, and it addresses the applicable findings. Staff does recommend approval, subject to the conditions listed in this staff report. That concludes my presentation, and the recommended motion is on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Come back to the Commission for Disclosures. Start with Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Familiar with the site?
Commissioner Munoz, familiar with the site?
Commissioner Villanueva, familiar with the site.
Commissioner Draculich, same disclosures.
Commissioner Taylor, same disclosures.
Commissioner Johnson, same disclosures.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosures. We'll now open up public comments. Are there any requests to speak forms?
We did not receive any correspondence, no voicemails, and no requests to speak forms for this item.
Thank you. Would anyone in the public like to speak during public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Back to the commission. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like to speak, sir? Reopen public comment.
Not to Gerald Hansen, Commissioner's property owner. Not to belabor the discussion, I just have done a couple small things like this in Reno in my years here, born and raised here, and my goal is to exceed any of the stipulations put on by planning and, you know, to beautify and improve the area. So that's it. Happy to answer any questions if you have any for me.
Thank you, sir. Did we get a name?
Will you please come fill out a request to speak form when we're done with this?
Gerald Hansen.
Great. If you could just fill one of the forms as well, it's
Yep.
how we can make
I will.
sure everything's in order. Thank you. Get back to the commission for questions or discussion. Commissioner Villanueva?
Thank you, Chairman. This question is for the applicant's representative and possibly the planner. Are there hours of operation that we are considering for this application?
So hours of operation would be from 5 a.m. till, I believe they usually go till 7 p.m. So there is an early start to it, but it doesn't go into the late hours of the night.
Okay, and city or planning didn't feel that there was a need to add conditions for hours of operation?
We did not. Leah Brock, for the record. Thank you, Commissioner Villanueva. In the mixed-use urban zoning district, we do allow for 24-hour operation. Of course, it is under the purview of the commission, should you feel that those hours need to be restricted, to add a condition.
Okay. And then for the condition number 11, no, wait, excuse me, condition number 7, the water feature, is that something that planning requested?
The applicant proposed it.
Oh, okay. The applicant, did you have any reason for the water feature?
The only reason was it's more of like a decorative rock feature, and we've done it on our other projects that we've done together. The water feature usually is not running. Just, it's not conducive to the area. But we're more than happy to have a running water feature as weather permits. But I think it's just to break up the landscape and to have something appealing in the landscape, more than just, shrubbery and mulch there, but to have something appealing.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gower?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, 2 questions. Leah? The first one, there's an existing billboard, as I understand it, on this site. How is that being addressed? And I guess if you could answer too, what the ownership status is of that billboard and how it relates to the site.
Thank you, Commissioner Gower. Again, Leah Brock for the record. The billboard is not part of the application. My understanding in discussion with the applicant is that the billboard is going to remain on site. And I can let the applicant discuss a little bit more about what the future plans for that billboard are. It is allowed as a pre-existing use, and as long as it is maintained on the site, it is allowed.
Okay. Ken, can you just elaborate on that, or Dr. Hanson, in terms of the ownership and the status existing and proposed of that billboard?
I'll let Dr. Hanson jump in here, but the billboard company has a long-term lease with the property owner, and the project. One of the things that makes the project feasible is having that sign there, but the consequences of breaking that lease would make the project infeasible. Jerry, did you have anything to add to that?
Gerald Hansen for the record. The billboard, that property was acquired within the last 12 months to try and make this project feasible. And the lease was a long-term lease that stood before acquiring the property. And given the opportunity, we would ask to have it removed, but it's not in the availability at this point. And it is doesn't affect the project, or nor does their servicing it. They don't have to even go onto the property other than that corner to service it, because everything is wraps now versus any maintenance, and they're required to maintain it in a safe fashion.
And that was actually the second part of my question, is the access to the billboard, so it doesn't have to be on the property and it won't impact the operation of the site.
No, they use a bucket truck and go from they park right on Mill Street and raise themselves up and put their wraps on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one second question, and if we could have the site plan up for this question. Leo, I'm looking at the site plan, and the landscape plan is fine too. It illustrates both. So thinking about our finding related to pedestrian connectivity, I think it's great that there's a bus stop right out front of this parcel. So I'm looking at that, and I'm also looking at this crosswalk that comes from the facility to the north, and it sort of dead ends into the landscaping, the way I see it. Is that something that staff looked at, and is there a way that we can make the bus stop and the pedestrian connectivity a little bit more fluid in the site in respect to the landscaping? And Ken, maybe that's something that you looked at too.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Gower. Again, Leah Brock for the record. I think it's not accurately portrayed on the landscaping plan, but I will let Ken discuss it. My understanding was that there was a paved connectivity there.
Yes, our intent was for it to be connected. That's the purpose. We want it to be inviting to the pedestrians. Again, it's just how it was shown, just the flaw in how it's presented in the drawings. But yes, we do want it to be connected there.
Okay, and so that's something that staff would work with the applicant on to finalize this and issue the permit, that you would make sure that connectivity is there?
Yes, thank you. Per code requirements, it will be required to be connected.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a quick question, and it might be for Leah or it might be for Jason. So there's something in code that says that we're not supposed to have a drive-through a quarter mile east of a freeway off-ramp. And I'm imagining that has something to do with traffic analysis. Is that accurate? Or why is that there? And then my next question would be for Mike Michelle, if he is supportive of having a drive-through. I'm just wondering why it's there in the first place, I guess.
Jason Garcia, Labu, Planning Manager for the record. Staff looked at this, and for the record, we determined that this is within that quarter mile area based on the NDOT off-ramp, or on-ramp, excuse me. And when the update was done to the both the Reno Master Plan and the Title 18, that was intentionally done to limit drive-throughs and other types of businesses within a certain distance of I-580. Staff has really come into challenges in implementing that, and so that potentially could be a future discussion item with an update to our drive-through ordinance. But as it fits with this circumstance, this is within that buffer area. So it isn't an issue for staff, but just so the commission knows, it has presented a challenge when we get developers or other applicants that come in and pose those types of projects.
Thank you. I saw it at our last meeting, and I was just curious about it, so I appreciate your comments on that. Thank you. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, is there a motion or discussion? Commissioner Villanueva?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, discussion. I'd be, I think I'm open to this, but I don't know that we need a condition requiring some of these amenities to be included specifically. I don't know that we need a condition for the water feature. If the applicant wants it, the applicant can have it on his property, I suspect. But I don't know that there needs to be a condition for that feature to be included with this development. So I'd be happy to get that removed, if that's possible.
Do we have thoughts, Leah, on that?
I do. Thank you. Again, Leah Brock for the record, and thank you for that comment, Commissioner Villanueva. The thought process there was that it was presented in the application that there would be a water feature. It's not part of Reno Municipal Code to require a water feature. So we put that condition in just to make sure that when they come in for the site improvements, that it matches what was in the application. That's the only reason. And of course, again, it is under the purview of this commission to modify those conditions as you feel necessary.
I would suggest that to the commission.
I'm not opposed to that at all.
Do you mind if, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, do you mind if we ask the applicant?
Sure.
Yeah, we are not opposed to that at all. Again, we want to make it appealing. And if you give us more leeway of how to do that, that'd be great. You know, if we're not tied into doing a water feature, but if we could do some kind of feature, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to maybe qualify that, because I agree that telling them specifically what they need to do is probably not what we want to do. However, I did see something in the staff report that talks about a minimum of 60% of the frontage has to be either building wall or pedestrian amenity. So that's, and the comment at least in the staff report, was that less than that was currently shown as pedestrian amenity. So I think it's not a question of eliminating the condition. I think it's leaving the condition and the requirements for the pedestrian amenities in there, but maybe not being so specific as to what they are. If I'm understanding that. And if I'm reading that wrong, Leah or Jason, please let me know. But I think that's the intent of that condition, and then removing the specific requirements would be acceptable, but not necessarily eliminating the condition for the pedestrian amenities. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct, Commissioner Johnson. Again, Leah Brock for the record. And we only specified that because it was what was presented in the application.
Okay, so something to that, the start of that condition saying prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, pedestrian amenities equal to code requirement shall be installed along the frontage would be an acceptable condition for that, and then listing the specifics would not be required.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm hearing possibly a motion with a modification to condition 7 to kind of address Commissioner Villanueva's concern.
If there's no further discussion, then I can do that.
Is that what it says in condition 8?
I only read condition 7. Yeah, I think thank you, Commissioner Taylor. I think you're correct that condition 8, but I guess my question is that percentage is different than what's in the staff report. So is it 20% or is it 60%? What are we requiring?
It is 60%.
Okay, so condition 8 says 20%.
Yes, that's correct. Originally, when we read through code, it was 20%. And then when senior planner, Nate, read through it, he said it's supposed to be 60%. So we made the modification and it just didn't follow through into the conditions. Again, it's absolutely under the purview of the commission to modify that.
Okay, so to that end, let's see if I can get this right. So if there's no further discussion, I will make a motion in the case of LDC 22-00068, the Mill Street drive-through coffee kiosk, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, with the modification I recommend that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit, subject to the conditions, with the elimination of condition 7 and the modification of condition 8 to indicate the code required 60% of primary street frontage is comprised of building wall or pedestrian amenity. Is that okay? And with that, I can make all the findings.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Villanueva, I second.
Perfect. That's 2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Thanks so much and good luck with your project. Okay, we'll now move to agenda item number 5.6, case number LDC 22-00089, First Congregational Church. We have a presentation from the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Rick Odinsky. I am council president for First Congregational Church, and with me is Tamara Hopkins, who will be the teacher leader of the Montessori school that we wish to bring in. We are here to request a conditional use permit to allow the Montessori school to move in. We have had a Montessori school there before in the building, and also a co-op preschool. First Congregational Church is the second oldest church in Reno. We were established in 1871, and we've been on our current site since 1957, since before most of the housing in the area was built. So we've kind of adapted with the neighborhood. Our plan is, our campus is basically 3.4 acres consisting of 3 buildings. The first building you come to is the, let's see, can I use the overhead? The first building you come to is the Christian Education Building, where we plan to house the Montessori school. We also use it for meetings for 12-step groups, crafting clubs, Northern Nevada bluegrass music, and quilting clubs that meet in there. We have 28 different groups meeting on the campus during the course of a week, with an average attendance of about 5 to 8 people at a time. Our biggest attendees are on Saturday morning, Monday night, and Tuesday night, where we have approximately 50 people at each time. So we are.
You can go ahead and put your documents on the overhead if you would like.
Put this on the overhead.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. I should explain, I am profoundly hard of hearing. So if I look at you strangely, it's because I have no clue as to what you just said. Okay, so here we go. I'm trying to orient this.
We'll
Okay,
also need you to
so,
speak into the microphone, please.
I'm sorry, what?
You can-
Speak into the microphone, okay. What you see here is the terminus of Sunnyside Drive. It ends at our campus, and Sunnyside Drive comes off of Keystone, and you drive into the street and then into our parking lot. Our plan is to house the Montessori school in the Christian Education Building with students coming in up here, dropping off here, circulating around, and then coming out this way. The distance between the hedge here and the building is approximately 65 feet, so there's plenty of room for students to get in and out. And Tamara will be addressing a lot of those issues with parking direction and also traffic flow into the area. We have 7 handicap parking spaces, with the closest one for the school located right there. We plan to reseal and restripe the parking lot, and we need to add more handicap spaces, just simply because our congregation is getting older, and we have more people who need to have reserved access closer to the building itself. Let's see. So this is the site plan. So you can see how everything is set up with the 3 buildings located in there. The one that comes into most use is the Christian Education Building. It's about 26 feet wide, 110 feet long, and has a large meeting room at one end and then individual classrooms. We have it fully landscaped all the way around. And along the back side of the property, which you can see better from this picture here, there is a 6-foot-high chain link fence separating us from the properties behind us. Behind the chain link fence, there is a 10-foot utility easement, and then behind that is where the homeowners have built their fences. So there's a wide open space, with the exception of this one property right here, and that belongs to the Copes. And we've been talking with them. They just moved into the area last year, and they plan to do some landscaping. We're going to work with them on that. But they took their fence down because it was falling down. So it butts right up against our fence line right now. So, and they're basically using the utility access as part of their property right now. It ends right at their property line. Our plan is to mitigate the sound and afford privacy shielding by putting screening, fiber mesh screening across the chain link fence the entire length. It's 189 feet long. So that will give privacy screening for visual impact. And then we will landscape it with evergreens, low-lying evergreens along the bottom with a 5-foot setback for decorative bark, and then about every 30 feet we'll have conical evergreens, and we believe that the combination of the 3 items will significantly reduce the sound impact. When we had the co-op preschool meeting in there, which has been in there for the last 10 years, we had anywhere from 20 to 40 students in the building. Our new proposal will have 15 to 24. So there'll be a lot less students, and they'll be located just on the west side, or this side here, of the building. We have classrooms along that side, and that's where Tamara and her crew will be taking care of it. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Tamara and let her explain to you what the concept of the Montessori school is and how it works.
Thank you. Tamara Hopkins for the record. And if you could pull up that PowerPoint from earlier. All right, I'm here to introduce Reno to the Wildflower School concept. Our school is Desert Peach Montessori School. We just recently received our 501c3 under the group exemption umbrella of the Wildflower schools. Are you in control or am I in control? Oh, thank you so much. All right. Here are the two teacher leaders. Me, I've been here teaching in Reno for 17 years, mainly at another Montessori school. I'm also a student, parent, assistant, administrator, and researcher, and I also live just down the street from the proposed facility. My partner is also Montessori certified. She has her teaching license and her BS in education. She is wanting to introduce a farm-to-table concept to our school as well, and she also lives in our neighborhood. So just to speak a little bit about what a Wildflower School is and what separates it from other Montessori schools is that our founder, Sepp Kavmar, he was a professor at MIT, he was a scientist, and he was looking for a school for his son. And so he wanted a Montessori school that was going to be inclusive, small, responsive, and he was inspired to reach out to other experienced Montessori leaders in the country and bring this sort of concept out. And so what's resulted from this is these schools being in affordable housing developments in San Jose. There's charter Wildflower schools in Minneapolis. There's district partnerships, and then there are many private schools, 40 altogether in the United States and Puerto Rico. So we have 9 principles that our school that defines Wildflower schools. The first that we'll talk about is that we're authentically Montessori. We're committed to small, non-hierarchical, and responsive to the needs of children. We are teacher-led, so the teachers don't just teach, we also lead the school. We do all the administrative work, all the outreach. Just some notable Montessorians. We often think about the leaders of Google and Jeff Bezos, but there's also many people of color and women who are famous Montessorians, as you can see up here. A big concept for us is that we're community embedded. I live in this community. I want to make this neighborhood better, and we're committing to working in a partnership with the surrounding community to create an environment that is healthier for children. We use innovation. We're committed to exploring new ideas and the ongoing scientific study and improvement of our practice. So some ways that innovation comes to life for us are that all of these things that you see up here, they're managed by a central team of experts, and it all trickles down to us. We're a non-hierarchical organization, and we also practice that in our little micro schools as well. Beauty is a huge concept for us. We want our classrooms to be beautiful, but we also want our surrounding community to be beautiful. So we have plans in place to beautify our neighborhood and beautify also the church. A big concept for us is equity. We commit to at least 33% of our school serving marginalized populations. And so we're hoping that that community is straight from our neighborhood. So as soon as we find out, hopefully this passes, then we start our outreach for the people in our neighborhood so that people can have the opportunity to have this high quality education and be given a chance to experience it. Nature, We're emphasizing the non-separation between nature and human nature, and that goes along with our farm-to-table concept that we're bringing. And something that Rick didn't bring up is that they have a beautiful community garden at their church as well, and it isn't just church members that use it. So they too are trying to do things to help the community as far as nature is concerned. We're also a network that blurs the boundaries between home and school. Right now, we have a big teacher shortage, overcrowding of classrooms. We are partnering with Elmcrest Elementary, the local elementary school, the local Montessori schools, and national Montessori organizations. We want to alleviate some of the stress that the teachers and the schools are feeling right now with the teacher shortage. Like I said before, we are a network. We're all over the country. Our hub, most of our people are over in Massachusetts, in Cambridge. And we would be the first wildflower Montessori school here in Nevada. So we're committed to being a micro school. It's one of our principles, 15 to 20 students aged 5 to 8 years old for this school year. I've been looking for a while for a place to have a school. And when this came up, I looked at this opportunity and said, well, the mission and values of the church are the same as our school. And I think this would be a good opportunity to utilize that space that isn't being used right now, that could be used to have a peaceful, inclusive school. And I won't go too much into that, but our hours, we plan on having a before care. So we'll see people trickling in the morning. So we don't foresee a huge traffic problem because we think about half will be coming for before care and half will be leaving during aftercare. So that'll be more of a trickle than a bunch of people dropping off and leaving all at once. And we are pre-enrolling. All right, and we do have our website up if you want to learn more. And I will conclude that for now. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Don't go away in case I need you to interpret.
Sure.
Great, thank you. Do you have any?
No, we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Sure. Thank you, sir. We're going to have a presentation from the applicant, and then we'll come back for questions. Or from staff, I apologize. Leah, do we have a presentation?
I do. Thank you, Chairman, members of the commission. Again, Leah Brock, Assistant Planner, City of Reno Development Services.
Thank you.
And again, just to follow up on what the applicant has proposed here, this is an application for a conditional use permit to establish a primary school in a single-family residential zoning district. Again, site plan review is required in this because of the residential adjacency. Subject site is 3.4 acres with an existing religious assembly. The proposed request would allow for a maximum of 24 students to be educated in a 1,420 square foot portion of the existing 6,100 square foot multi-purpose building. Key issues related to this request include compatibility with surrounding uses and structures and traffic access and circulation. Again, the subject parcel is located in the single-family residential zoning district that does allow for 8 units per acre, or SF8 zoning. It is surrounded by developed single-family residences. The subject site has 3 existing structures, including the church building, an office building, and the subject 6,100 square foot multi-purpose building. The building is located approximately 26 feet from that north property line and the adjacent residential zoning. So there is 26 feet of distance between these two, between this building and the property line. The neighbors most impacted by this use will be those to the north of the parcel, the 26 feet from the building, adjacent to the proposed playground. There is an existing chain link fence there between the parcels that is partially taken down, as the applicant stated. But the applicant has proposed a screening plan that would include this heavy-duty fabric, which would allow for privacy. And it will also, the proposed landscaping will also meet the current code requirements, which would be evergreen shrubs, low bushes, and evergreen trees. We have added condition number 7 that the applicant will need to submit a landscape plan prior to issuance of the state license for operating the school, and that landscape plan would need to be subject to review and approval by the administrator in this case. The existing parking to the west of the building, they're circled in yellow, will be designated as the pickup and drop-off area for vehicles. All the infrastructure necessary to support this project is available. The project will not generate a significant amount of traffic, as there will only be a maximum of 24 students enrolled in this school. And traffic generated from this use is lower than the previous uses and should not have an adverse impact on the surrounding street network. We have added a stipulation, condition number 5, which would require that prior to operation, the applicant provide evidence, subject to the satisfaction of the administrator, of a pickup and drop-off area for vehicles, as designated in this exhibit right here. The project was reviewed by various city divisions and partner agencies. Courtesy notices and hearing notices were sent out to the surrounding property owners. As of just a couple of hours ago, staff has received 11 comments. 5 of those have been in support, 3 have been in opposition, and 3 have been letters of concern, not necessarily opposed to the use as the school, but concerned with traffic and sewer on this particular property. With the recommended conditions of approval, the existing site does appear to meet code standards and does address the applicable findings. Therefore, staff does recommend approval subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. This does conclude my presentation. I am available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll come back to the commission for disclosures. We'll start with Commissioner Gower.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, received and read correspondence.
Commissioner Munoz, same disclosures.
Commissioner Villanueva, same disclosures.
Commissioner Draculich, familiar with the site and read and received emails.
Commissioner Taylor, same disclosures as Commissioner Draculich.
Commissioner Johnson, same disclosures.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosures. We'll now go to public comments. We have some request to speak forms. Did we receive any correspondence or voicemails?
We did receive correspondence that was distributed to the commission before tonight's meeting. We did receive a voicemail, which we will transition into now.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susan Hastings. I live at 1070 Novelli Drive, and I'm calling regarding case number LDC 22-00089 for the First Congregational Church on Sunnyside. And I'm calling you about them wanting to put a school in there. They had a school in there several years ago, and we got it shut down because they were overloading the sewage system, and things got a little better after we got it shut down. But even the stuff that they have going on up there, we get sewer smell coming out of the storm drains. It got a little better during the pandemic, but now that the pandemic is easing off, I'm smelling sewage in the storm drains again. And on top of the sewage overload, there's the traffic and the speeders. They seem to think Novelli is their shortcut to everywhere. And between Elmcrest School and that church up there, I mean, people speed up and down Novelli and Sunnyside. We try to get them to slow down. They have actually become belligerent with residents because we try to get them to slow down. I've gone up to the church and said, tell your people to slow down, and they don't. And so between the speeders and the sewage, we really, do not want to see any more activity up there that's causing more of the sewer smell and the increased traffic with rude and belligerent speeders. So I appreciate you playing this message into the record because I cannot make it to the meeting tonight. So thank you very much for your time and your consideration. My number is 775-843-4188. Thank you. Bye.
Great, thank you. We have 4 requests to speak forms. We'll start with Ms. Kathleen Chandler.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, my name is Katie, and I'm speaking because I want to support the school happening. There's a few reasons for that. One, we are in a massive shortage of little kids education programs in the city, and Montessori education is a phenomenal option for people, and so helping more kids get access to that, I think, is a definite win. The second thing is that I actually used to live with my mom in that neighborhood. My mom lived right on Sunnyside, and myself and my 2 small children lived there as well. And I agree that there's traffic that comes through there. I don't think that this small amount would increase that traffic. What I think is a more appropriate response is to have some kind of traffic calming devices to actually slow down people on that lane. I don't think that's an issue with the school itself. It's more with the whole street by itself. Those are the 2 main reasons, and I strongly suggest and request that you guys consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Lambertson.
I am the Reverend Dr. Kate Lambertson, who is the pastor of First Congregational Church of Reno, and I'm speaking in support of the conditional use permit for the establishment of a Montessori primary school at our facility. First Congregational Church, as Rick said, is the 2nd oldest church in Reno, and we have served the Reno area for over 150 years. We have also been on this current site for over 60 years, far longer than many of the homes that were built around it. And it was mistakenly classified as a residential zone many years after it had been constructed. The church has a strong outreach to the community. It has community concerts by the Reno Pops and Reno Orchestra Ensembles. We do serve 17 12-step program groups. The Children's Cabinet Stitchers group meets there. The Northern Nevada Bluegrass Association meets there. We have a Girl Scout troop, and we host the Toastmasters. We are also actively in partnership with Elmcrest and Grace Warner Elementary Schools and the Reno Initiative for Equality and Shelter. I think allowing Desert Peach, a micro Montessori school consisting of only 15 to 24 students to operate on our premises would continue the church's community outreach by serving the neighborhood children of all races, ethnicities, and economic statuses, which is consistent with our church's mission statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Tisha Bronner.
Hi, I'm Tisha Bronner. I think a lot of the points that have already been touched on, but just to kind of go back and remember what some of the important qualities are, is that that site has been used for many years to offer childcare for the neighborhood in order to benefit the people in the community. And I think that a majority of the neighborhood, although we heard one angry caller, I think a majority of the neighborhood would say that it's operated without any impediment or negative impact on the neighborhood. And I think that we all know that there's a staff shortage in the Washoe County School District. And speaking as a past teacher, I think that it is important to help alleviate the classroom, like the sizes, as well as the lack of teachers available. So I think some people might ask, does 15 to 20 students really make a difference? Does that impact anybody? And I would say that it's important to remember that it does impact the families that are able to send their kids to this high quality educational source well, let me back up. This is actually meant to suit families who are basically underserved and have low income. So although there will be a sliding scale, so not all families will be low income, the majority of the school is meant to serve low income families and offer them an educational opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise receive. And so to those families, it does matter. And I would say also, we know that statistically speaking, women in the workforce have been more negatively impacted by COVID than men. So it matters to the mother who can send her children there, knowing that she has a safe, affordable environment for her children to be at every day while she returns to work. So I think that for all those reasons, it does matter for 15 to 20 students, but it's also meant to be a micro school. So it's not going to negatively impact the traffic flow of the neighborhood. Although there might be other traffic concerns, I don't think the church or the school is the source of that. I think, as Katie stated, there might need to be some traffic calming that the city implements in order to make it a safer area. And speaking as a current real estate agent, I can say that would also, the school and the traffic calming and having a safer neighborhood will impact, hopefully, the neighborhood in a positive way, because if there is a high quality school that families want to send their children to, that does increase the value of their home. So I think that this can be a win-win situation in order for the students, for the neighborhood, and for the church. I think it can be win-win for everyone as long as there are, stipulations in place that make it so that the students are safe and the neighbors are happy with the situation.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Donald Barr.
My name is Donald Barr. I'm a long-term resident of that neighborhood. I've lived there for in excess of 40 years. The houses were built in the mid-'60s, and as such, I've seen several generations of families come and go. Mostly going, because that area has become a virtual gold mine for investor absentee landlords who rent to college students primarily. And you talk about noise? Give me a break. Noise is not all bad. There's nothing that is more enjoyable for older people in a neighborhood than hearing the sound of laughing and screeching of kids in the middle of the day as they play outdoors in the good time weather. I would support this application and the work of the Montessori school. I think it would be a benefit to the local community and would also give us an opportunity to have some child activity cares going on in that neighborhood where families might be able to drop their kids off on the way to work. By the way, thank you for the pink cards. Those are very useful to let us know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have Elizabeth Flaherty.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Flaherty. I live on Sunnyside Drive. I'm not opposed to the school. I agree with the Montessori concept. However, ever since the change has been made on Keystone, and they've narrowed it down to 2 lanes, there's a lot more people that cut through now on Sunnyside and go down Novelli and reach the other neighborhoods and the other way around. We're concerned about more traffic. If they keep the school that small, that would be fine. But when I initially called the city and asked about it, I talked to Leah, I was told it was going to be 160 students. So I'd like to know what happened to that, why now it's cut down. I've been told a number of things, that they want to start this school now with 15 or 20, and then they're going to apply to have it incrementally grow. And that neighborhood cannot handle that much traffic. And while we're talking about the traffic, if you do approve this school, then what we ask is that you put in speed bumps, because we do have the AA meetings, we do have the church. I was walking yesterday, and there was someone that sped by me on Sunnyside Drive, where it's supposed to be 25, they had to be going 40. So we're asking that if you do approve it, at least put in speed bumps for us to protect the children that are going to maybe walk, because I live next door to a lot of the people that spoke, and they have small children that are probably going to go to that school, and I'm sure they want them protected as well. But if they're going to grow that school to be that large, then I don't want the horse to get out of the barn. I want it stopped now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak?
Can I respond?
Not at this point. If
Okay.
we have questions, we'll
Okay,
direct
good.
them to you.
I'm not sure where that information came for 160. Legally,
I appreciate, Doctor, we have to follow the order, but
Legally,
I
we
really do
can't.
appreciate it.
we can't have them.
Thank you.
I would like to make one comment, if I may,
Sir,
that
if
has
we
to
have,
do with,
if we have questions for you, we'll open it up and ask questions. But for now, if you can give us a little bit. Thank you, sir. We'll come back to the commission for questions or discussion. Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we heard several comments about traffic, and I'd like to just get a little bit of clarification from staff in terms of the, either from Mike or from you, Leah, in terms of the city's approach to addressing traffic situations like this when we have a proposal that's fairly specific and then we have a traffic potential issue in a neighborhood, how that's addressed relative to this proposal. Mike's got his hand up.
Yeah, good evening, Mike Michelle, engineering manager. I guess my thoughts on traffic is that in regards to this particular project generates a negligible amount of traffic. In fact, it generates less traffic than previous entitlements to the project. Any traffic issues in the area are more regional in nature, and any thoughts of traffic calming measures need to be addressed by our Public Works Department, and they are better handled through them, not necessarily through this particular project. So I think that the traffic issues, if there are any, are more regional in nature and need to be addressed more globally, not necessarily by this project.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. So I guess the follow-up question then is what next step does the community have in terms of what we've heard tonight? What's the next step in terms of, do they go to Public Works to talk about this? I mean, how does that get addressed at that regional level like you're talking about?
Well, by the very nature of our conversation, this will get relayed to Public Works and be addressed by them.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I've got on the traffic. I did want to follow up on the comment that we heard about the sewer and try to figure out what's going on with that, but I'm not really sure who has an answer to that question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I heard of that this morning, and my comment to Leah was that this is more of a sewer maintenance issue, and that will be relayed to them.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions on the commission? Commissioner
Taylor?
Taylor. Yes, Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a tough one. I'll just ask the question that was asked during the public comment. Leah, can you please talk about the difference in numbers between 160 and what's proposed now, please? Thank you.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Again, Leah Brock, for the record. I'm not sure where the number 160 came, but when the applicant originally submitted, there was, within their proposal, there was conflicting information. One section of the proposal said that there would be 30 to 50 students, and another section of the proposal said 15 to 24. So I believe when I spoke with that member of the public, I wasn't sure at that time what the total was going to be. When I met with the applicants during the staff applicant meeting a couple of weeks into the process, we did clarify that it was going to be the 15 to 24 and not the 30 to 50 as stated in the original application.
So is there something that prevents the applicant from going to the 25 to 50 or above 25?
Yeah, we've conditioned it to be a maximum of 24.
Okay.
So should they want to increase that enrollment, they would have to come back and amend this conditional use permit to request that. Again, this would be back before this body.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Villanueva?
Thank you, Chairman. Question for the applicant, or the applicant's rep. The question is, I understand that we've had issues with the, there's been shared concerns regarding traffic, and obviously there's not a whole lot that the applicant can do regarding the neighboring streets. I'm wondering if the applicant would be open to maybe slowing traffic on site with speed bumps, if that's something that the applicant would be open to including as part of this application.
I don't think the speed bumps are in the church area, which is what we have control of. We cannot put speed bumps on Sunnyside Drive. That is something the road department would do, not something a private organization can do on a public street. We would encourage and actually support speed bumps on Sunnyside because since the construction on Keystone has made this now a new thoroughfare and has turned Sunnyside into a speedway. And it's not because of a preschool, but it is because it's just a short street, and it also doesn't have adequate stop signs on it. Again, that is nothing we as a private owner of a property can do, but we can recommend it to the city to get that done, and the residents have done that as well.
We understand you have no control over that.
Right.
But on site, on the church, you guys are going to be restriping and redoing the parking lot. For purposes of slowing traffic on site, would you be open to?
We would be open to, but I don't think that's necessary. That is not where the traffic is the issue. The traffic is the issue on Sunnyside, not in the parking lot. We don't have an issue with that. But we would do what, if that's requested, we would figure out a way to do it. I mean.
Mike, with the city engineer, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any input regarding whether it would make any difference to have speed bumps on site?
I think this issue, again, is more global in nature, not necessarily pertaining to this particular project. However, if the recommendation comes out to be that there needs to be something on site to this development, I would encourage the applicant to be amenable to making whatever recommendations that we make to their site, on site. But as far as the more global nature of the study, I mean, that's more on us than them.
Would
So
it hurt traffic flow to have speed bumps on site, in your opinion? Would it cause any, would it be harmful to have bumps on site?
I don't think it would be harmful. However, it may not be helpful either. So, I mean, you know, it's a small site and it's a very small volume of traffic. So I don't think it would necessarily matter one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, discussion. Commissioner Gower?
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion if there's no discussion.
Sure.
Okay. In the case of LDC 22-00089 First Congregational Church, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the conditional use permit subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. And as an addition to my motion, I would certainly encourage the city of Reno to engage with the residents or vice versa on the traffic control devices on Sunnyside. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, I will second that, and I just wanted to indicate to Commissioner Villanueva's comment, one of the conditions that's on here does require the applicant to provide a vehicle pickup and drop-off plan and sign locations subject to approval of the administrator. So I do believe there's a whole sort of on-site development process that's going to occur after this in order to finish the process. And I think through that, any on-site issues would be addressed. So just wanted to mention that. And I can appreciate Commissioner Gower's comment and can also make all the findings.
Great, thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Good luck, thank you.
And I'd just like to say that I was a total neophyte at this when I put this together. And if it hadn't been for the city planning department, we'd have never made it. You got a real good tool there. They were very helpful, very cooperative, and caught all my mistakes and forwarded everything on. So.
Julia. Great, okay, well. We'll now move to agenda item number 5.7. This is case number LDC 22-00088, NNMC Northwest Extended Care. We have a presentation from the applicant, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Velto, Commissioners, John Krompottek, representing the applicant. You see on my opening screen there, the Sparks Family Hospital, who's doing business as Northern Nevada Medical Center, is the applicant. Helen Leadholm is their CEO.
John, can you bring the mic closer, please?
Of course. This is always a problem. Is that better? Can you hear me okay?
Just bend it towards you. Yep.
Like that? Then I got to stoop over. Are we good?
That's better.
Is that better? Thank you. So this portion of the hearing is the zoning map amendment from multifamily 14 to public facility. Why do we need the zone change? It's because this is the existing skilled nursing is the existing use. We're going to a use that falls under the definition of hospital, acute, and overnight care. Staff has agreed that this fits that definition. That includes the list of specific uses, which are behavioral health, long-term acute care, and inpatient rehabilitation facilities. Those are allowed in the PF zone with a CUP. There is the site. We have joked about this, and it's got a lot of traction about Healthcare Way on Charlins Boulevard here. Charlins, square, and then everything east of there is health type of facilities at this point. St. Mary's changed to urgent care about 2 years ago. On the other side is the memory care that is under construction that's called Somerset. So that kind of fills in the entire stretch of Charlins Avenue. This is the this was the conditional use permit site plan. We were talking about just zoning here. So there is the existing master plan. There is existing zoning, as we discussed, MF14. There is public facility zoning. Several of the commissioners asked about what could be allowed in MF14 and what could be allowed in public facility. So we went through the entire table of uses, allowed uses. And without getting into detail, I'll save it for questions. There's about 16 pages. This is a condensed version. But what I did want to share with the commission, I think it's important to you in listening to your concerns and comments about this. This summary chart shows the different classifications of land use, right, that are represented in our zoning code. And so there's residential, and then we have multifamily 14 and PF on the right column. And in summary of all of those zoning code uses, without getting into whether it's allowed by use or by CUP or MCUP, just big picture here of a residential, you would see that 12 are allowed in MF14 and 10 in public facility. Now, residential includes group residential and, of course, residential as we think of residential. Public institutional and civic land use classification, 5 in MF14 and 13 in public facility. Commercial, and so you can see also this classification allows for a lot more public facility. And if you wanted to ask specific questions about what commercial, we have that prepared in that table of uses. Quasi-public and quasi-public facility, utilities and services, basically a wash, 3 and 4. And then what's important, I think, is the last bullet point in that last line in the table, industrial. There is obviously no industrial. So look at the last bullet point. I think this is really what kind of speaks to the issue and about compatibility and protection to the neighborhood. And what is a significant fact is that both zones, MF14 and PF, do not allow for any food and beverage, do not allow for any lodging, do not allow for any retail, do not allow for any industrial uses, including manufacturing, processing, resource excavation, and distribution warehouse. Those are the kind of things that can be more obnoxious with adjacent residential. So there's some implicit protection in the zoning code as it's crafted today. The other ones, there's a lot more variation. That's all I have, commissioners. Thank you. Again, Helen Leedholm's extremely knowledgeable in the healthcare industry, a leader in this region and in the United States. She's here for any questions if you have on the operation of the specific use and those types of things. Thank you. I think I'll be back for the CUP portion.
Great, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Brooke, do you have a presentation for us as well?
I do. Good evening, Planning Commission. Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner with Development Services. So we'll be seeing 2 projects tonight, just to be clear. So the first one we're seeing is a zoning map amendment, right? And we always want to look that those zoning map amendments can stand on their own because those uses underlying can change. So the case before you is LDC 22-00088, the NNMC Northwest Extended Care. Quickly go over the project site. It's approximately a 5-acre site. There is a building on that site. It's approximately 77,500 square feet, and that houses an existed assisted living care facility. There was an SUP in 2014 for this site at that time it was a special use permit and did allow for that assisted living. And at that time, they looked at the residential adjacency, other impacts at that time. This is for the zoning map amendment. There is an associated conditional use permit that is for that hospital, acute, and overnight care. The key issues that we looked to are the safety, welfare, and that compatibility in this. Just to give our location, this is the Robb Drive and the on-ramp to Ron Drive. This is the intersection of Charlins and Robb Drive. We are seeing public transit at this point, and there is flex transit in the area, in this general area. As we come in closer to the site, as the applicant's representative, John Kapodic, outlined, we do have an acute, the St. Mary's urgent care. We are seeing currently under development a assisted living facility. And then to the top of this, we have that existing residential. The current master plan is a mixed-use neighborhood. And as we look at our current zoning is that MF14. What we're seeing is an MF21. That assistant living center would be allowed under that MF21 and has been permitted under that. That the current assisted living facility is allowed in that MF14. Looking at that acute care and that care, that does require a zone change in this to allow for that. It is not allowed in that MF14 zoning. So they are proposing that public facility zoning. That public facility zoning is conforming under that mixed-use neighborhood master plan. And what we see is the very uses. Most of the uses in that we'd see would be schools, government buildings. We do see hospitals. Now, those can be privately and publicly held. And so that's where that quasi portion of that public facility comes into that. We do see that MF14 allows many of those residential uses that are allowed in MF14, where that PF really is restricted of those uses and really is governing of less residential uses, and then both, as was mentioned, restrict any industrial warehousing and those other uses. As staff analyzed this, we went through our findings and were able to make all the findings with this associated with the zoning map amendment. With that, I will leave you with the motion on this, and I'm available for questions as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll come back to the commission for disclosures. Start with Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Johnson, I am familiar with the site, and I spoke with the applicant's representative.
Commissioner Taylor, same disclosures.
Commissioner Dracula spoke with the applicant's representative, visited the site, and also, I believe, received one email on this item.
Commissioner Villanueva, no disclosures.
Commissioner Munoz, same disclosures as Commissioner Draculich.
Commissioner Gower, same disclosures.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosures. We'll now open up public comments. Do we have any requests to speak forms, voicemails, et cetera?
We did receive correspondence for this item that was distributed to the commission before tonight's meeting. No voicemails and no requests to speak forms.
Great, thank you. Would anyone in the public like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment, come back to the commission for questions or discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Commissioner Johnson, Brooke, question for you. So I appreciated the kind of the breakdown. The one question I have, and I guess maybe the one item that is different between these two that I saw was the fact that multifamily housing is not allowed in the PF zoning.
Correct.
So I guess to that end, for this zone change, how is staff making, there's a finding about the zoning change about ensuring the development of adequate supply of housing for the community, including the development of affordable housing. Obviously, this is one parcel we're talking about here, but it is a very specific change from a multifamily zone to a zone that doesn't allow for multifamily to happen. So how does staff make that as a finding?
Certainly. So, as we were looking at this, there's a few things going on this particular site. We have an existing building with an existing use that's built within a commercial function, and that additionally we're seeing that freeway and those surrounding those surrounding uses. So as we look at looking at affordability, providing affordable housing, we're looking at a regional base, right? And granted, we have to, as we've had these discussions, we have to continue to look at these at an individual and site level. When staff looked at this location access and what it offered, it probably sets itself up to be more associated with a commercial or in this case that public facility site. Now that's not the case in all cases, but in this one, as we looked at that, we figured with the surrounding uses, what was there, what had been established, what's establishing around it or has established around it, it was probably better suited for a commercial site.
Okay, so, and I appreciate that kind of explanation. So really, you're looking at it maybe more from the specific circumstances and the viability of this site for that housing that's talked about here, as opposed to just a general blanket site zone change without some of those existing.
Yeah, obviously this is a zone change and we are looking at that zone change and what that could be. But we do have an existing building that sits under there that's been built for a certain use, and there's an investment and cost within that, right? So we would see a demo, we would see a number of things. That building was built 2014, 2015. It has several years of life within that building. And so, from that point of view, we move that it was probably more appropriate and more probable that this would maintain in a similar use to what we have or what was it originally established for.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While you're up there, Brooke, I have a quick question. One of the other findings is the protection of the existing neighborhoods. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what outreach had been done to the neighbors.
So, and the applicant's representative or the applicant could probably speak a little bit more to that. We did have early discussions when we had our staff app, and that was one of the things that we did request, that they reach out to those neighbors and continue to communicate with them and to bridge that gap as this change happened and look at those other impacts. Additionally, as you'll see in our further, where we're looking more site-specific, I think you'll see in our next presentation that you'll see that we have certain conditions and other things, and then the original SUP and how that site was developed originally start to protect those existing neighborhoods.
Thanks, Brooke.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Gower.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could follow up on that, Brooke. So obviously we know that there's a specific project being proposed, but if you're looking at this zone change and isolation, and you're looking at the use table like I am, and some of the uses that would be permitted by right, and I'm looking specifically like at primary schools, secondary schools, what is the process to, when those are permitted by right, for a school, for example, how would you look at that relative to the adjacent neighborhood in the permitting process when it's permitted? It doesn't have to come to us, essentially. So how does staff look at that situation?
And there's many sort of backstops in place. So one, that would be a change of use, right? So that's going to require a full review of that site for parking, for circulation, for transportation. It will require a full review of that because of that change of use. We'll see through that business license and other needs. Additionally, what we saw with our Title 18 update was the inclusion of those residential adjacency standards, which start to really restrict signage, lighting, some of those other things that we see those impacts on those neighborhood. Additionally, specifically with the school, we have additional design standards that need to be applied through RMC, and those would be applied through that as we saw either a tenant improvement or a site plan improvement on that site.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Villanueva.
Thank you, Chairman. Did the city have, it doesn't appear to be the case, but does the city feel that lighting, the exterior lighting would pose any problems for some of the neighboring?
It's certainly, and I think I can go into detail in the conditional use permit a little bit more on that. We did have some comments from our enforcement as far as lighting, and we do have additional, within that conditional use permit, additional conditions that address that you'll see specifically related to the hours of operations of those lights, the intensity of those lights, and some other mechanisms that we can employ to reduce the impacts that we're seeing.
Okay, where would I find those conditions? I see.
That'll be on your, so that'll be LDC 220090. So it's the case that we'll be hearing directly after this.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
okay, I
And
see.
so
So it's
within
'cause it's
that,
not here,
yeah,
okay.
and this is really looking at that larger zoning, and then we'll really zone down into the site itself on the next
I see,
application.
okay. So
Yep.
I must not have that in front of me. Okay, that's, okay, we'll talk about then,
Mhm.
that, at that point then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Dracula, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please do.
In the matter of case number LDC 22-00088, NNMC Northwest Extended Care, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to recommend that City Council approve the zoning map amendment by ordinance, and I can make all the findings.
Great, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Taylor, I second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. We'll go straight into agenda item 5.8, which is case number LDC 22-00090, and then NNMC Northwest Extended Care CUP. John, do you have a presentation for us?
Thank you very much, Chair Velto, Commissioner John Krompottek. This portion is the conditional use permit for the use being defined as hospital, acute, and overnight care in the PF zone that's been established for about 60 seconds. Why do we need this use permit? The mix of healthcare services offered by the applicant fall under the definition of hospital, acute, and overnight care, including behavioral health, long-term acute care, and inpatient rehabilitation facilities. Those are allowed with a CUP in the PF zone, which is the subject of this CUP. There is the site as we discussed on the prior. There's the existing site plan. In my opinion, it's very well done. It's very competent. Circulation is excellent. Comes in on the east side, goes to the north, wraps around into the parking field in the back with very well-defined access point, and then loops around on the west side with one-way outbound. Nice field of parking in the front, and a lot of available open parking on Charlotte Avenue as well. There's the architecture. I think it's well done. That's the existing Sierra Ridge. This is germane to the change of use that the applicant is proposing. It shows you the three different wings and the uses specifically, the 50 beds for the behavioral health. Then in the middle of the building is the 27 beds for the LTAC. And then on the east wing is the 22 beds for the acute rehabilitation area. Charlins Avenue, just to give you, this was not a strategic taking of this. This was during the day, and there was just no demand for parking out on Charlins. Actually kind of quiet in there. There's the entry that I talked about. There's the exit, the rear parking. Of note here, of course, it's perhaps the most important thing is this residential adjacency. And so separation and screening is really the key element there. Lighting has come up a little bit. As well as one of the commissioners mentioned. There's a little bit of zoom on the landscape buffer. It is well done there. It's a little bit different in character, and there was the one letter from one of the citizens, one of the neighbors. We're prepared to deal with that in another condition if the commission feels it's necessary and staff feels it's necessary. We certainly want to get this right. We've committed to everybody in this process that we're going to get this right with respect to compatibility. I would also share that Helen's internal team, they have their own internal PR team, did outreach to individual residents, each of those single family, knocking on doors, not a host community meeting, nothing too formal, but very targeted, intimate type of outreach, and they had very strong support for the notion, for the project. They had a couple of people talk about lighting. We have certainly accepted the condition for lighting as staff has presented a new photometric plan. We actually had critique about, and I've joked with several about this, critique about too much tree cover back there. It's an interesting thought. It's not very often you hear that. I guess somebody did a fine job in the screening and buffering in the past entitlement deal. So, and then there's a little bit about the operation. We talked about the 50, 27, and 22 beds. Staffing projections. Year one, 57 employees grows to 88 employees. Now remember, that's split over 2 shifts, so the parking would be lessened because of that. That's the medical, nursing, and clinical staff on 12-hour shifts, support staff 8-hour, 24-hour a day admissions just during normal work hours, Monday through Friday with insurance authorization. And then in terms of, kind of impact analysis, I think it's important for planning commission. We talk about parking and trip generation, right? Because that's some measure of really what's going on there. And so what we have is 103 spaces. The existing extended care facility the extended care facility, this use, is based on one per employee, 57 spaces, plus 46 for all other uses. Frankly, there's oversupply. It's more than adequate, but it's responsible, is what our findings are when you get into the technical part of this. Then on trip generation, our traffic engineer looked at current use as a nursing home. That was the best fit compared to this proposed use extended care. And you can see that it's quite a bit less, 440 in the current, 283 ADT PM peak hour. The better measure is about the same. So I just want the commission to know that I've spoke with Helen about the conditions. She's in full agreement. And again, if anybody has any concern about the screening, tree cover, and all of that, we can talk more about that. Thank you very much for your time. I'll be here for any questions.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
I said thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sure. Brooke, do you have a presentation for us?
I do. Once again, Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner. So this is the second case, the follow-up case. This will be a conditional use permit. Once again, the site, we've gone through this, the general location, 5-acre site. I'll just run through it quickly, looking at that intersection there again. Once again, I do want to add that, we do have public transit within this area, and we're seeing flex transit available not only in the general area, but to the site specifically. Coming back into the site, so as we look at those surrounding uses, we're seeing a medical facility, the current site of a senior care facility, but the proposal for a hospital and acute and overnight care, and then we're seeing the assisted living. So we're seeing a sort of a block of medical uses or supportive medical uses along this way. And then one of our big things that we're looking at is that compatibility with that surrounding neighborhood. As I mentioned before, a previous special use permit was done on this site. Looking at that came in before a lot of our residential standards and a number of those things that we sort of apply through code now. This was done by Vern Kloos that I think a few of you may know. Vern was very thorough on his analysis and his applications. What you do see within this site, and I'll go a little bit further as we look at that the key issues of that compatibility in the parking, but with that SUP, a number of the things that we would employ through our conditions have already been constructed and built on the site. We are that mixed neighborhood, and as we move through, we are looking at this under that public facility that the previous case that we looked at before this. This is the overall project site. To the north of to the top of the site is where we saw those residential homes. So along that, you can see that there's a large landscape buffer that was installed. Those did have 10-foot evergreens at planting, so they had additional from what our code requires. Additionally, what we're seeing there is a solid block wall. Now, normally, the requirement between residential commercial would be a solid view wall or another wall like this. In this case, we're seeing a solid wall. Those are great because they reduce sound. They also reduce any visibility and headlights on those neighbors. As the John Kapotic showed, that we do have those lights that sit directly on the back of that, on that siding, on the back on the north side, and then throughout the parking lot. Working with the applicant, they are in agreement that we will perform a new acoustical on that, and that we will, that dimmers and other mechanisms to reduce that lighting and overall impacts in the nighttime hours will be reduced. Additionally, what we have is a limited time on pickup and drop off. So we have a drop off on the front, we have drop offs, and you can see the two canopies on the back that we'd anticipate. Those are the back doors and the drop offs on those. We really want to limit those overall impacts on the neighborhood of those, and we have limited those hours that they can do commercial drop off, any commercial drop off. So that would be supplies or anything else between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. So that will reduce that overall impact on the neighbor. Additionally, as we look at parking, the site was originally cited and developed as that assistant living. With this new proposal and the approval of that PF zoning or the recommendation for approval of that zoning and then the CUP, we would go to that hospital acute and overnight care. That has a much higher parking ratio that would not be able to be accommodated on this site. But in staff analysis and working on this, this is not your typical acute hospital where we'd see in and out patients, emergency service, high visitation rates. And so we do have within our code the ability to use different professional summaries of parking. And what we did on this is use the American Planning Association, and we were able to apply in that, it was pretty consistent of about, for a facility like this, about a half of parking stall per bed. We have 109 beds coming in at about that 55 parking stalls. And additionally, we're seeing probably another 50 on top of that, or roughly 50, 55 on top of that. So with staff's analysis, we feel that this is adequate and sufficient parking to fulfill both any customer service, visitation, and employee parking on the site. And then what we do like is that we do have that overpark, but they are looking to grow the facility from that 55 to 88 employees over a period of time, and we know this will be adequate. Additionally, we're not seeing that parking associated directly with the residential. So if we did have any offsite parking, we'd see that along Charlans, along the frontage of Charlans. That does not directly impact that neighborhood that we directly see to the north of this project site. So just going over the landscape a little bit more, this clearly shows that landscape buffer that we have along there that has been installed. We have the wall. The landscaping is in and meets all current standards. The architecture meets our current RMC standards. I think one thing that is unique to this building and should be brought up because it's an amenity is those interior courtyards that we're seeing. Those will be maintained, and so that provides that provision of the outdoors in a secure space and location within this site. And finally, just looking at the room layout, they will be doing some tenant improvements to modify this to meet their use, but this shows that 109 beds in the layout they'll be doing there. Staff did run through all the conditional use findings. We were able to make all the findings, and with that, we leave you with a recommendation of support for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Come back to the commission for disclosures. Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spoke with the applicant's representative, familiar with the site, and received and read correspondence.
Commissioner Munoz, same disclosures.
Commissioner Villanueva, no disclosures.
Commissioner Draculich, same disclosures as Commissioner Munoz.
Commissioner Taylor, same disclosures, and I also attended the NAB meeting where this was presented.
Commissioner Johnson, same disclosures as Commissioner Draculich.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosures. We'll now open up public comments. Are there any correspondence, voicemails, or request to speak forms?
We did receive correspondence for this item, no voicemails, and no request to speak forms.
Okay. Would anyone in the public like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Come back to the commission for questions. Commissioner Munoz?
Thank you. Commissioner Munoz, for the record here, this is probably going to be for operations when the site is up and going. So I'm assuming it's going to be for you.
This button here?
It should be on, or it should be red.
Is it on?
Yep.
Okay.
So my question is, because this is going to be, or the request is for a mental health facility, there's obviously no fencing or security around, physical security around the property. What is the operations for security inside? And is there other security on staff other than just the nurses or the mental health workers? And do you see this posing any threat to the community that's directly behind the facility?
Thank you, Commissioner. Helen Leadholm, for the record. For the behavioral health part of this building, one of the really good things about this property is that it has the internal courtyards. And so there is a requirement, particularly for behavioral health, that patients need to be able to go outside, and that will allow our patients that are able to move around to go outside. We will have security, not 24/7 we're not anticipating needing that, but we have other security measures of guards that are driving around and making sure that the site is clear. And we also have the building, it will be locked between the 3 separate areas. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Commissioner Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if I say this enough, but I like this project. I'm supportive of it, and I don't know if it's appropriate to say it's infill, but it kind of feels like infill with a major community need. Mm-hmm. So glad you guys are here, and thank you, Brooke, and appreciate your hard work.
Commissioner Draculich, right there with you. Was so excited to see this project. It is sorely needed in our community. Notably, what I took note of is we're going to be alleviating a lot of issues and overcrowding in ER rooms. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of people and individuals from the CARES campus utilizing these services. Love the project. I'd love to see one of these in every ward. That's how bad we need this. And going back to our previous meeting when we talked about finding ways to expedite specific projects. I know we were talking about affordable housing and that such. I do feel like this is in the same realm to where I'd really like to see this expedited by the city of Reno. I know you guys work really hard. Would love to see any fast moving we can on this. Notably, from what my understanding is they get approval from this building, but they do have some issues going forward with the state and other issues and grants and whatever they need to get up and going. So the faster we move, the faster the next steps are. So just want that for the record, and thank you guys for putting this together.
Definitely. Thank you for your comments. Commissioner Villanueva?
Yes, Commissioner Villanueva, for the record. Thank you, Chairman. I agree. I think I do a lot of work in adult guardianship, estate planning, so I understand there is a need for this because I have a lot of clients who are caring for individuals that need this type of care. So appreciate it, and I think this is a good location for it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Munoz?
Ready to make a motion if we're ready.
Perfect.
The case number LDC 22-00090, conditional use permit. Based on the compliance and applicable findings, I move to approve the conditional use permit subject to conditions, and I can make all the findings.
Great. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Draculich, I second.
There's a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries unanimously. Thanks so much. Good luck with your project. Okay, that concludes the public hearing sections of the agenda. We'll move on to item number 6, which is the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Johnson, there has been no meeting since our last meeting, and since I am no longer chair, I am not privy to know what's on the next agenda. So
I recall you saying that was your last report.
Yes, yes, I'm still not chair any longer. So there we go.
Great, thank you. Item number 7, we have staff announcements. Jason?
Good evening, Commissioners. Jason Garcia-LeBou, Planning Manager for the record. To start off tonight, I just wanted to give a little shout out to some anniversaries, 5 years for Mr. Brook that just stepped out there. And also Mr. Mike Michelle as well recently celebrated 5 years, so with the city. So congrats to both of them. As far as kind of city council items, at the August 10th meeting, the Ellen Glen Drive zoning map amendment and the Corral Academy rezoning items went forward and were approved. September 7th is our next planning commission meeting. Mr. Nathan Gilbert will be subbing in, so I will be on vacation. And at that meeting, tentatively right now, we have 3 items. 2 of those are master plan amendments with associated zoning amendment changes. So just giving a heads up to the commission. And then the 3rd item is the Title 18 amendments, which was originally scheduled for tonight, but we had some odds and ends to add to that, so we pushed it back 1 meeting. That kind of gives me an excuse to talk about master plans and zoning amendments per Title 18 in the update and kind of tonight's item with the change to public facilities. I just wanted to kind of bring it to the attention of the commission that typically with those applications that come in under the Title 18 that's been updated, the master plan amendment or the zoning amendment has to be a separate application from if there's a tentative map or conditional use permit. So that's why you see separate items, and we treat them differently and look at them differently. And so I think Commissioner Taylor was kind of pointing that out at the first discussion with the discussion on consistency and compatibility and things like that. But we look at them a little differently because when we do a master plan and it's a zoning amendment, that's technically looking at all the potential uses in a zone, whereas the conditional use permit application is much more focused. So you'll see our analysis and findings very different. So I just wanted to follow up on that. And the last thing is staff is working on getting the school district to come over and do a presentation regarding their consultation process. That's on the agenda, and we also have some future APA training that will probably be swapped in September and October. So that's all the updates. Thanks for hanging in there, and that's all I have. So.
Thank you. Agenda item number 8, commissioner suggestions for future agenda items.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to say that I at least give us a break every once in a while.
Oh, my apologies.
Like a 5-minute break.
Yeah. Please, I was waiting for it. Sorry, at any time, please let me know. I can sit down and do this for hours. So my apologies. No breaks. Please, anytime, just raise your hand and we'll absolutely do that. Great. Agenda item number 9, public comments. Do we have any request to speak forms, etc.?
We have no public comment for this item.
Would anyone like to speak? We'll close public comments. Seeing none, will someone move to adjourn? So moved. Perfect. Second?
Second. Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Great. Did you say?